welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. This season, the year we've been given is 1973. And we're almost done. We've done a lot of the movies of 1973. But Don't Look Now is the movie that we are going to be talking about tonight. 1973's Don't Look Now. I am your host, Greg, and before I introduce the two contestants, know this. They are contestants because this is a game show, everybody. And I'm going to be giving out points for correct answers, for well-made arguments, for funny jokes, or for compliments that touch my heart and make me feel good. Joining me tonight, the winner for like back-to-back-to-back-to-back shows, and current champion and current best friend, because that's still something we do around here, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Am I the Shohei of this show?
You are the Shohei. Hey, show us what you got, Shohei.
Former Angel, but if you think about it, future Angel.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really think about it, once they got Ron Washington as their coach, that's when you're like, okay, this team is going in the right direction. They've got a young, hip guy.
Just turned 72.
But like a young 72. That's the thing. A young 72. I don't know, listeners, if you know anybody who is 72, but there's different types of 72. Just like there's different types of 73. And tonight, we're doing the very film-centered part of 73.
Don't Look Now.
That's what we're doing, Ryan. Very good. Very good.
Ryan.
That's for knowing what movie we're talking about. Our challenger, our challenged friend, Mike. Mike, are you ready to come in here and make some great points about the movie and see if you can get off the skunk?
I watched 2021's Don't Look Up. So no, I do not think this is going to go well for old Mikey Pants.
Do you think that people gave that movie too hard a time and it was actually fine?
That movie was far too beloved, if you ask me, but you asked Mike, so I'll be quiet now.
Ryan, please do not weigh in on this topic.
I
Mike,
actually
what would you like to say?
Didn't watch it. I would never watched it. It looked like the hottest, steamingest pile of dog shit.
So, yes, it was given too hard a time in your opinion.
No, I think people probably liked it too much.
I waited a couple years.
I think it's the American Hustle.
Oh, damn, coming out swinging.
Mike.
Of its generation.
Mike's least favorite Irish director, David O. Russell.
Ryan.
Mike, just so you know about what we were talking about earlier, Shohei Ohtani is a baseball player who pitches and hits at the same time.
Whoa, what?
He does it. It's called
like
Bugs Bunny
self T-ball
style.
Yeah, he's a T-ball coach.
You should let the other team pitch. That's not fair.
There's nothing in the rule that says the other team has to be the one. Oh, there is? Oh, wow. Man, they have really codified this.
And it has to be a golden retriever.
It has to be. It's the only way to make this game fair. No, that breakdown I'm like, oh, there's so many reasons why I lose. But you guys just have a language I don't know how to speak.
Yeah, our love language is Sparts. But we are not here to talk about Sparts. We're not here to talk about Shohei Ohtani. And we're not here to talk about 2021's Don't Look Up. We are here to talk about Don't Look Now, a movie I feel like I had not even heard of before this season started. Mike, let's start with you. What is your history with Don't Look Now?
I had to, when I typed it in very carefully, there's so many movies called Don't Look Blank, and I just really had to make sure I picked the right one. My actual history is I'm a big Donald Sutherland fan, and I fucking love The Witches. It has scared the shit out of me, which is a much later movie in this director's career.
Anne Hathaway's The Witches?
Anne Hathaway's The Witches. This guy came back from the dead just to direct her in that. Is it Angelica Houston? Has melty face and is terrifying. And I haven't watched that. Like, I've gone back to the well because I'm a broken man child, as we all are. Of the things I liked as a kid, I have a Monster Squad hat, I have a Monster Squad tattoos. The Witches is one I haven't gone back to since I was a kid. I just remember
Too scary?
It being the scariest fucking thing in the world. And now seeing this, I'm like, yeah, why did he make a kids movie? Why did people let him make a kids movie?
That's
terrifying.
why. Yes, because we used to be a country, and in that country, kids' movies that were supposed to be a little bit scary were a little bit scary.
Yeah, where's Toby Hooper's Hocus Pocus 3?
Remember how when we were talking about Exorcist, we were like, why would they just let a director like babysit a completely passed out 12-year-old girl when like she hardly even knows him. That's because in 73, like people were like, who's the most trustworthy person you know? Oh, movie directors. Definitely.
Roman Polanski.
Yeah,
They've
they can
never
do
done
whatever they
anything
want.
wrong. Never will.
So I don't think we have to worry about those guys. That's one segment of society that we got locked up pretty good. Ryan, how about you? Self-styled movie guy, cinemanista.
Don't say self-styled.
No, you said it, but I don't.
The president handed that down. He got the medal.
No, you are Greg styled, the movie guy. Had you seen this before?
I had seen this before.
Movie guy. He's the movie
Greg.
guy. He just loves movies.
Right.
He knows about movies and he's seen them.
I had at least heard of it, you fucking troglodytes.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I'd seen it multiple times. One scene in particular, multiple times.
I bet I can say which
The
one.
one where he gets his neck hacked. Oops, spoiler alert.
Being a weird kid when the internet first comes out, you're like, sure, there's porn everywhere, but like, let's fucking watch that one.
Yeah, dude, I want to see
1973.
that 1973 2-minute sex scene.
Are you supposed to bend your body over her head and body when you're both doing some
we
Kama
are
Sutra
gonna-
shit?
Like, there's a whole.
Oh,
section
sure,
study.
so we'll get
We
to
are
it,
going
we'll
to
get to it.
absolutely get into whether or not these people know what sex is. That's going to be a whole 10 minutes of the show where we're just like, do you know how to doink at all? I know
You know
guys
that a
are like,
doink, bro?
I know you're in mourning, but honestly, you pork in a ridiculous way.
That should be a permanent segment.
Do you know how to
weekly.
doink right?
But yeah, I've watched this movie the first time a while ago. Watched it pretty regularly since then. I'm gonna guess that half a dozen times I've seen it. I find it endlessly fascinating. One of those movies where pick out new things every time.
It feels like you could turn to like any scene in the movie and be like, okay, I'm gonna like pay a ton of attention to this scene because I feel like maybe I've missed key elements of it.
There is so much to look at in every frame, but also you can completely switch on what you're paying attention to thematically.
Yeah.
Some of which we'll get into, but
Right.
Is this the future? Is this the past?
Is it the future Conan? I think I can predict right now that at the end of this episode, we will wrap it up. We will stand on stage for like 9 to 10 minutes because our audience treats us like a fucking film at the Cannes Film Festival. Where, all right, guys, settle down. And then
Our
we'll be like,
knees
man,
are tired.
we could do another show about that. Like, it's just that kind of movie.
I think at the end of this one, we're all going to agree. We're all going to say together.
That's a classic right there.
That's a classic right
That's
there.
a classic.
In 73, I'm not sure people got it. This is a movie certainly that has enjoyed a comeback, right? So when we're talking about the 73 like zeitgeistiness, I feel like people at the time were like, what? And it took a little bit longer for people to be like, hang on, I think he's doing something.
Yeah.
Well,
What?
especially,
Why? And how dare you?
I don't know how this movie was advertised, but if the studios got it and they were like, I guess just make it look like a horror film, like that's gonna hurt it in the long run.
Yes.
People go see it and they're like, what?
Well, I'm just
Like,
going to turn my brain off, get a hand job over this movie, and then you're like, I can't get a hand job anymore.
Like, it's called masturbation, bud. You have to stop calling it that when you're just alone in the theater.
Guess
doing
who's
it.
getting a hand job tonight, boys?
Use that selfie stick.
I had never heard of this movie until this season, but then when we did our world famous pre-watches, Ryan, I watched it and I was hooked. And I think part of what's interesting about this movie is you get completely absorbed in it, but it's not always clear to you as the viewer why that is. I think this movie like works beneath the surface, excuse the pun, and like it's
Water.
working.
It's because it's about water.
It's working on us in ways that I think we're not always aware of, and I think that's what talking about is going to be such a fun enterprise.
Yeah, absorbed, but like a lot of times when I think about that, I think about like I'm so wrapped in this plot, I forget I'm watching a movie.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is like I am so absorbed.
Ryan.
In the visual, like the visual language of this movie.
While the coldness and the disassociative plot pushes me away to the fact where I never forget I'm watching a movie.
Right.
Yes. And
It's-
also
it's
like
less
Go,
zippy. Like Tarantino never wants you to forget you're watching a movie, and this director's doing the same thing, but not in a zippy, haven't we all watched movies way. In a way of like, oh, you think you know what a movie is, motherfucker? I'll
Yeah.
show you.
But I sort of disagree with that. But unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to talk about it later, so I don't want to get smacked by Greg. So I
do
will
not
say
you do not want to
Keep
get
your mouth
smacked
shut.
by
I'm allowed to
me.
say whatever I want. You keep your mouth shut.
all I'll say is those two people fucking fucked. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, we can hardly wait to get into it. So you know what? Why should we? After this break, we get into it. After losing their daughter Christine to an accidental drowning, Laura and John Baxter relocate to Venice, Italy, so he can restore an old and somehow fake church. But while there, they encounter a couple of odd sisters, one who seems to have the gift of second sight. They tell Laura that the late Christine is still with them, and this news hits the couple in two very different ways. Laura is suddenly happy and exploring the worlds of spiritualism and religion, but John is skeptical despite the fact that he seems to be having visions of his own, of a figure very much like his daughter, moving through the alleys of Venice. But John's visions do nothing to diminish his skepticism, and this leaves him half blind as he tries to reconcile his existential certainty with his quiet hope that he can reconnect with his late daughter. But when he gets close to doing this, boom, it's a creepy old lady instead, and she slits his throat. Grief really is complex. Gentlemen, we're going to get into the sexy sex, and we're going to get into the doubling and the reading the future. But first off, why does this movie have the grieving couple go to Venice? What makes Venice the perfect place for this story?
Well, right off the bat, Greg, there's a sex scene that's very famous.
Well, Greg, you see, it's all about premonition and doubling.
Venice.
Like when we do two segments about one topic.
Venice rhymes with penis.
And we all have it.
Penis.
Okay.
That's what you use for sex.
Very true. We all have it. Listen, we all got one. That's the one thing that unites all people is that we all got dong.
You got one in your front or you got one in your back. That's what we know about people.
That's what we know about pee holes.
Venice is inherently creepy. And it's unsettling.
Yeah,
Water
why?
instead of roads? Fuck you. Get out of here with that shit.
Mike, it's not. Venice isn't unsettling, Mike. Venice is settling. Ew. And you shouldn't have to settle, listeners, for jokes that are anything less
I think
than
it's
that.
the perfect. They are out of their comfort zone as people, as parents, and there's water everywhere. And I don't know if you guys noticed, this director likes to show water. Water means something here.
Some drops to drink.
And a
Water
few drops
everywhere,
to drink.
and then
Yes.
but like some of it you can drink.
As
Yeah.
long as you don't
and
drop
sometimes
the
you're
cup
like,
that has all
"Oh,
the water in it. Man,
the
these
water's in
people
my
can't
hand."
hold on to any.
Do you guys think that the filmmakers of The Usual Suspects saw this movie? Because that ending is just all over this entire movie. Like, drop the cup, have a revelation. It's just every single scene.
This is one of those movies where when you are watching it and you haven't really heard of it, like I hadn't, but you are like a fan of movies that come after this, every scene is like, you're like, oh, that's where that movie comes from. Oh, that's where that shot comes from. Oh, that's where that comes from. It's like, obviously, Hollywood has seen this movie, and they want to be like, hey, remember that movie? Because everything feels like a callback to this.
I really do think that, like, and then you guys will notice, I'd already seen this movie a bunch, so I'm kind of like
a lot,
ahead of you.
Yeah, you're
you know
a
what?
fucking pervert for it.
Ryan.
You keep
He
watching
deserves
it.
He just
But you guys will notice from here on out how often this movie is referenced. Like, it really is beloved among, at least in the bubble, if not outside the bubble.
And that's part of its resurgence, right? Is that people who are like acclaimed artists reference it so much that the rest of us are like, wait a minute, there's something good here.
Which is kind of like, if you didn't like it, we don't know yet totally how everybody feels about it. If you didn't like it,
Right.
find a way to like it, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're gonna sound stupid.
Yeah, definitely. Get
but
on board, everybody.
I was watching Dead Reckoning Part 1, comma, Mission Impossible, and there is a lot of chasing in Venice, and I was like, oh, somebody's seen Don't Look Now, and then I was like, well, it's just in Venice. Like, there's really no way to shoot Venice at this point without.
And those
making me
pigeons
laugh.
literally are everywhere. That was not added for this movie. That's the one thing. After you learn about the canals, the second thing you know, they are riddled with pigeons.
But here's the thing that I love about what Rogue's doing, at least in this part, is that there's this thing with directors that drives me crazy because, like, we don't have fucking time. There's more important things to do. Is that when they get into a foreign locale, so I'm talking as an American about American directors in a place like Venice or Rome or
Bruges.
Holy
if you're
shit.
in Bruges.
Things just connected for what director might have seen this movie.
I know a city that has canals.
Whether it's like a low budget movie or like a Merchant Ivory Oscar bait movie or it's Fast X, you get to that new city, you can't help but just show drone shots and sweeping, beautiful, magnificent shots of all of the architecture and all of the famous things that we've seen.
Ryan.
And this movie really goes out of its way to, like, almost like an Eli Roth movie, like a Hostel movie. Never go.
No,
to
it's
you
terrifying.
Never go to Venice.
You
after
get
this.
lost. You meet creeps.
Well, like when you actually go to Venice, you go to a different part of Venice than where this movie is set. And so that's like a big part of what he did was it's Venice off season. It's Venice when they're basically closing everything down, when it's winter and it's cold and there's nobody there. And also, he doesn't like go over the Rialto Bridge. He doesn't go to St. Mark's Square or whatever. Like
I
instead,
assume because I've seen pictures of London that there's a giant Ferris wheel somewhere in Venice. He doesn't go to that.
He doesn't go to like the most popular churches. And so you get the back alleys, you get the really dreary looking kind of just decay without the elegance. And Venice is this place of elegant decay, but he doesn't show you any of that. He just shows you like the wet moldering buildings.
And I think that we're going to talk a lot about Christine, her short screen time. Or her very
and her
screen
short
time.
stature, right? I think that comes into it.
Her short little jacket and long. What is
It's
that
cake.
song?
Short skirt and long jacket.
It's cake.
Cake, sorry.
Short skirt, long jacket.
Sorry, cake. But the grief that's overriding this entire movie, they're in mourning, even when the sun goes down, and like he can't see this. Like Donald can't see this at any point. He's freaked out by his wife, who's now found some sort of new happiness now that she knows that Christine can be seen by these two sisters, who I believe. Mike, can you check me on this?
They did those old crones. They wrote "Happy Birthday," and later got smashed together to deal with a little blonde moppet of the same haircut in Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, this is a prequel to Poltergeist,
and it would of course pose the important '70s question: where's the beef? They can't see it. They can't find it.
But Donald now lives in a little place that I like to call Sutherland, and he can't see those beautiful things.
Right.
He can't see the architecture. He can't see all of the nice stuff. Like any city he would have gone to is all alleyways and decrepit, and like life's kind of
that's the grief
over
pulled over his eyes,
or at least,
right? Is everything looks like this,
right? Or at least like
Mike.
When his life before Christine died was he was immortal. Like that moment, I believe, was going to last forever. Like he was going to him and his wife and his kids at their English mansion with great jobs and stuff. Like he had the best life of fucking all time as far as he was concerned. And now this is it's literally ruined everything until he dies.
And he'll never shake it.
Right.
Like it's not like it's the way in which her ghost or spirit is supposed to be with them all the time. They can't like look at each other without seeing it. They can't be in a room without her, her absence being like the premier presence
and
in the room.
That's why I think so many, they like statistically, most marriages do not survive the death of a child, and I think it's because of that. Like healing is possible, but I don't think if you're with the person who you created that person who's now gone with.
Especially if one of them kills the child.
That other little boy, which is why they sent him straight away.
Yeah.
It's interesting a choice the movie makes, though. We have to watch him like with Christine, and we have to watch him freaking out at the moment that he finds her body. But slam cut to now we're in Venice, question mark amount of time later, and there's this feeling of like we just skipped the grief. And movies always do this. Like we skipped the grief, everybody, and you can tell the couple is kind of trying to be past the grief for each other, but all that's happened is they've been pushed into individual versions of the grief, and they are completely isolated from each other. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I've heard this called despite one scene. The sex scene?
The sex scene. Where they seem very much together.
We'll talk about that
There's
later.
a lot of closeness there.
It's the least romantic movie of all time.
Yeah, I mean...
They're roommates.
Yeah, totally. I buy that completely.
Except because there's definitely like a flirty vibe before Christine dies. They seem to ignore it so hard, and the other kid's just not around. I don't think it's like 80 minutes in the movie before they're like, oh, we have another kid and he's here. That I was like,
fuck, Jonathan.
I know
Joseph,
they're fucking with time in this movie. Did we go backwards? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. She's writing him a letter, like a couple minutes after we move into Venice. She's writing him a letter, but for the viewer, we're not really sure who she's writing to. Like, it's probably the kid, I guess. But yeah, the movie almost forgets they have another kid because he gets put into a separate world. Because that's what they are all, like, this grief makes them each retire to a different chamber inside themselves. And, like, it feels like they can only shout across this void that exists between them, and they can't traverse it anymore, except...
Just like you can't traverse easily the streets of Venice. You have to shout across the canals.
I mean, that's the other thing, too, about why Venice and not Rome is that when people are, like, building cities, like, oh, there should be a city here, they put it on the shore because of fucking water.
Yeah.
And the water took his daughter. I'm so sorry about the rhyming, guys. I have a flow right now. The water took his daughter, and so where did they go? But the city that conquered water, like, it just lives above it. Like, so we can now walk on top of water and not drown right now. And I think that, like, that has to be something about it, right? Like, it's famous for, like, the streets are
paved
with water, which is hard to do.
It's so funny though, because you think you know that on one hand, but, like, anytime they got to go somewhere, they're like, Call a boat.
When the ambulance boat showed up, you're like, oh, this city's dumb.
Damn, they're, like, on the water. Yeah, when they first built Venice where it is, it wasn't even nice. They just did it because, honestly, like, conquerors would come by and be like, well, you're in the ocean.
Come get us, Attila the Hun.
They literally couldn't figure out how to get out to them, and they were just like, well, okay. I guess you're free to stay Venice.
When you said nice, did you mean Nice?
That's in France.
Nice?
Asshole.
Oh, sorry.
Part of the immersion of Venice in this is not just the non-touristy parts. It's not just that we're in the back alleys and stuff like that. Part of the immersion in it is that the Italian is not, in almost all versions, the Italian dialogue is not actually given in subtitles to the viewers. How does that help with this deep immersion into, like, the experience of being in a foreign place?
I think that if Julie Christie,
Laura Baxter,
Laura, if she knew Italian or was more of a
wouldn't
main
happen, right?
Then it wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
but because of Donald Sutherland's specific knowledge of Italian, which is very poor.
It very much his knowledge of Italian really changes scene to scene.
It does. Well, I think he never really speaks Italian that well, and he's just faking it most of the time. And then when he gets stressed out, it just turns into, can you speak English?
I think that's...
No, I can't.
Right.
Could you bring in another lady who can?
And she does, but then cannot.
Yeah, but then they cannot.
But you just get like, I just don't want to deal with this guy alone. I'm going to grab...
We can bring Roberto up here. He speaks German.
But yeah, he knows a few phrases, a few words, enough to order from the menu. And then Laura knows none, but, like, relies on him. Like, I think it seems like she assumes he knows more than he does. And he's like, I know how to talk about church and rocks in Italian.
And he kind of I think he uses that. You know, watching this movie for the third time, it really hit me how controlling he is. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the first things you see is she's reading with his back turned to him. He's like, hey, what you reading? And then when he first goes to see her at dinner, she's like, I'm writing a letter to John. He's like, what's in it? And she's like, it's just a letter to John. Don't worry about it. And he's like, okay, what's in the letter to John? Read it to me. Like, and then he orders for her at dinner. And so I think he does a lot of, like, pretending to be in more control, because that's how he deals with the unmitigated chaos of existence. Is he pretends
and it'd be
he has
I want to
control.
see a prequel, just a boring, like, family sitcom about them to see, did Christine's death cause this, or is this always in him? And there's no way for us to know, but it definitely feels at least amplified by the death.
I feel like there is a clue that their problems predate the movie, Mike, and I think it's the fact that she's not facing him when they read, that they're facing away from each other in the beginning of the movie. I think that's kind of supposed to indicate that they've already, they're in different worlds. They're already kind of separated from each other.
I've never looked at my wife while I'm reading.
Yeah, I do want to let everybody, all the listeners, know that it's okay for you to read and your wife to read, and that doesn't mean that you're going to get divorced or that your child will die soon.
Well, I would just prefer if she reads to me. While I do
feeding you grapes.
While I do my exercising. There's a lot of time spent in the fake church. And there's a lot about, obviously, spirituality in this. What is the religious connotation? This idea that he spends all his days in the church. He's trying to renovate this church. He's trying to restore it. but he is like the least spiritual or religious person of all time.
It feels like, especially because he has the second sight, which somebody at least says it's a gift from God, even though it only feels horrible. It feels like he's very much like, he's like, nah, it's just a job kind of guy, to prove like how little anything matters to him. Like he wants to be a merc, he wants to be a hired gun, but like in the back of his head, there's always reaching for the mystical, for the other, for the religious.
Yeah, and his job is to like rebuild religion. Like there is this weird, fucked up Christ/Antichrist like figure about this guy that he's like trying to go back and forth. And I don't mean like Antichrist, like the devil's inside him, but I mean like Christ/fighting the Christ, like figure inside of
Christ.
That he is a person with no religious sensibilities, restoring a church that is said to be fake.
Right.
I still don't get that part.
Does that mean that it's just going to be a tourist
I truly
attraction?
don't know what that means.
I think that like people are gonna walk in and they're going to look at how old it is and ooh and ah, but I don't know if like actual prayer or sermons will go on.
I'm guessing. Here's what I'm guessing. What I like about this movie is it will not explain things to you.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens then is you end up pressing your face to the movie and trying to peer around the sides to see what you can come up with. I think it might be fake in that it is not as old.
And
as
so
it's
when
made
he's
to
like
look. I think
comparing
that
stones, he's trying to make it look older.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, because it's like in maybe like the 19th century, they built this church and they were like, look, this is from the 14th century because that's a lot cooler to go look at. But because Venice is the Vegas of its day, a lot of it's just bullshit, artifice, fakery, and so they would manufacture relics. That was a pretty big business in the Middle Ages.
I mean, think about it. If you're a real city that's like old or not, but you have off seasons and you have times where the city's basically empty, you're a tourist trap. And that's your main money, and that's what you're thinking about. So if that means that you got to rebuild a church, and I think that's also true too of like this for James Baxter, John Baxter for John Baxter for the JB, that adds to the whole thing of like this spirituality is fake. It's always fake. We are recreating this church for fake reasons, therefore there is no spirituality, and that makes him deny his sight, whether he has that or not.
Right.
And I think the movie is, at a certain point, it's kind of undeniable, right? That like there's something
starting
going
from
on
the first scene.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the fact that he has second sight, but that he denies it. And so there's a lot of imagery of like just one eye. And so he is like, he's not blind, he's half blind. And that's worse because he sees enough to mislead himself.
Right.
That if he believed in his second sight, that would probably be okay. Or if he totally didn't have it and had his beliefs, that would be okay. It's this half, having one eye open, one eye closed.
But the opposite of
him.
JB is when we haven't talked that much about the two sisters, but the
Heather.
blind sister. For John to be the opposite of him would be the blind sister who cannot see but sees everything.
Yeah.
And then you're just a freak. You're like a controlled by spirit freak show. And that's not what he wants.
With a creepy smile on your face all the time.
Right. And he wants full control all
no
the
creepy
time.
smiles.
Well,
not a lot of creepy smiles.
We hit some pretty important points in that first segment. But can we turn to matters a little more trivial when we come back?
Trivia.
They call it trivia, and that's just what it is. I'm going to ask you the questions. Wait until I get to the end of the question before ringing in with your own name. The answers are whatever I say they are, because I'm the one did all the research.
If they wasn't, then why would you say they
Why would I say there are? So true. So true. Question 1. What did Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie do on the day they met?
Mike. Fuck!
Well, they filmed that sex scene.
Mike.
Question mark. Was it true that this scene features true and real sexual intercourse?
I have to say...
Are you going to ring in there, Chief?
Oh, we ringing in?
You got to ring in.
Okay, sorry. I misunderstood. Ryan. I have to think that they did not.
I'm going to go with that. In 2011, Donald Sutherland and producer Peter Katz issued stark denials that there was actual penetration going on.
That means there is then.
Only people who deny things are the people who did them.
The famous sex scene was completely removed by the censors when this movie was theatrically released in what country?
Ryan.
Mike.
USA?
Not USA.
Shit.
Ryan, do you have a guess?
I will say China.
Not China.
Mike.
It was... Oh, Mike?
Italy?
Not Italy.
Ryan. I will say Djibouti.
Not Djibouti. It was a bunny old Ireland. Oh, no, you can't be having sex in the middle of the movie there, so just take that part out.
Don't look now. More like don't look ever.
Ryan.
It's a lot like that. So as not to get an X rating in the U.S., how much of the sex scene had to be cut out?
Ryan. 50%.
Mike, do you have a guess?
Mike. 87.2%.
In order to avoid the X rating, 9 frames had to be cut out of the sex scene. What did Julie Christie's boyfriend, Warren Beatty, do the first time he saw director Nicholas Roeg after filming this scene?
Mike?
Hit
Hit him.
He punched him. Yeah. He said,
I know my Beatty.
He said, do you want me to punch you here or punch you outside?
Oh.
And Roeg went outside, I guess. So they went outside and he socked him. And he's like, all right, we're square.
That's like a classic last Boy Scout head or gut situation.
Mike.
What is notable about the dialogue in the scene set in the church where Laura lights a candle for Christine?
Ryan. Improvised?
It was
Ryan.
mostly improvised. Apparently they had a lot of writing for that scene and it just all sounded awful. And so they just went with like the two of them not kind of seeing eye to eye. Renato Scarpa, who plays Inspector Longhi, couldn't do what? Making delivering his lines a bit difficult.
Mike. Speak Italian.
Ryan. Speak English.
Yeah, I think he speaks Italian good.
Well, that would have made it difficult.
I think English was a little bit of a stretch for him. Apparently what they did was they would just say his lines and then he would just repeat the sounds that he heard.
Aqua.
And then Roeg really liked how creepy that was. Which it is. That guy's got the creepiest energy.
It's so weird. But did you
Some
say
of
like
you think,
Aqua?
Yeah, the band Aqua apparently didn't know English.
They did it all like syllabic?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Really? Oh, that's a fun fact.
Mike.
Those Barbie girls.
All facts are kind of fun, but that was a particularly fun fact.
Over 7 million people died in the Holocaust.
What a fun fact!
That's not fun at all. Mike. Venice turned out to be a difficult place to film in, mainly due to what? Which caused problems with continuity and transporting equipment. Ryan.
The water.
Mike, can you be more specific?
Mike, the canals. Is that more specific?
It was the water, but it was specifically the tides. Apparently it was continuity hell because the water will be like significantly higher at some times than at other times.
I heard it was weird for Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie to walk on the canals before they went and had anal.
Ryan.
Oh, I thought that was a mic for sure.
Dude, didn't you?
So did I.
Didn't you? I let the fingies decide. The fingies want
Donald.
what they want.
Man, that name has been as ruined as Adolf has been ruined.
Yeah.
Should we just call him Sutherland or Nintendo DS?
Sutherland. How was this film received by Venetians?
Ryan.
Mike.
They said, don't look now because we're Venetian blind.
Oh, Mike.
No, but that does seem to have some resonance with the movie. Mike?
Mike, I don't think they liked it. It does not show Venetians in the best light, I'd say.
Yes.
Mike.
Particularly like the city councilors were very afraid it would scare away tourists.
Especially, again, for a city that seems to heavily rely on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as soon as the tourist leaves, it's just everyone looking around like, well, there's nothing here anymore.
Everyone puts the long caps and the nightgowns on and just goes to sleep.
It's not a real, it's like, it has ceased being a real place. I mean, we talked about this when we talked about like why it's a good location. That's why, because it is a dead city and we hang out in its corpse. But there's like no life there.
People live
Jersey
in
Shore after Labor Day.
Right.
It's just shitty teenagers.
People live in Vegas. People live in Branson. Is that not the case for Venice?
No.
Well,
everybody, like in the 70s, there were a few more people, but almost everybody who works in Venice like takes the train to get to Venice and then takes the canals to get to where they work.
Park, then.
Tourists have made it so awful, I think, that they don't want to be there.
And it's a tough place to live, you know? It's like tough to have kids there and go to school. It's not a very like disability like compatible place.
Which that is a good point though. If they're going to go, let's say they decided to go to Venice for sure, then it's good they sent their last remaining non-drowned child somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, that kid should not be in Venice.
Like, well, we know our kid's kryptonite, so we're not going to have him here.
What is noteworthy about the scene where John almost falls to his death?
Mike.
Oh, Ryan.
Mike?
It really happened. They said, fuck it, we're leaving it in.
Oh man, sometimes that answer is so funny it has to be true. This is not the case for this particular answer, but you could imagine. Ryan?
I believe that it was something that Sutherland's stunt double would not do.
They couldn't get the insurance for the stunt double to do it, so Donald Sutherland said, I'll just do it. And he thought he was like rigged up in such a way that would be safe, and it turned out that if it had gone a little bit differently, he would have fallen.
Hey, my guy. Character and actor. If you're in like a horror adjacent movie, don't go on like a suspended painter's loft.
No.
Apparently, if he had twisted around more, the rope that was actually holding him up would have twisted and broken because he didn't know how to do stunts. Right. Because he's not a stunt man. Because the stunt man wouldn't do the stunt because of professional reasons about doing stunts.
It's not Donald's stunt.
When the stunt man won't do it, don't be like, well, I'll do it. That's okay.
Alec Baldwin, you hear that?
What did Donald Sutherland wear for the entirety of filming, even while buck-ass naked? Mike?
Condoms.
Wait, so like in the dinner scenes?
Yeah. Condoms.
No,
not condoms. I'm always wearing a rubber in case it goes down.
Dude.
You never know.
Emergency. You never know.
Protection.
Ryan.
A
necklace?
Not a necklace. A glorious curly wig that he wore.
That was
going to
be my second guess.
Under his nose?
On top of his head. That is not his hair. That is a curly wig.
That's how I see Sutherland, is with that curly hair.
Is this
he
stolen?
Has that same hair in Sliver.
Is this stolen curly valor?
Yeah. Now I like him not at all.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah. That's find an actor whose hair is curly. That's all I ask. To prepare Julie Christie for her role, which deals with extrasensory perception and precognition, director Nicholas Roeg took her where?
Ryan. The ESP end zone.
Mike. The mystery spot in sunny Santa Cruz, California.
Ryan. The Native American Lodge at Knott's Berry Farm.
Mike. The Winchester Mystery House in San Jose.
Do we live in the worst state?
And the correct answer is the mystery spot. No. He took her to some seances. The film's German title is Wenn die Gondeln Trauer tragen, which means what?
Ryan. When you look, it should not be now.
Mike.
Don't
ride the boats.
In German, Wenn die Gondeln Trauer tragen means when gondolas wear grief.
That's pretty good.
Can this possibly be true?
Mike.
You think that you looked up a
Mike?
fake fact?
No.
This is true. Point to Ryan there for some reason. That when gondolas wear grief. Imagine you work so hard to make a movie as beautiful, complex, and interesting as this, and then they call it When Gondolas Wear Grief.
I would have taken it one step further and made every gondola like Kit from Knight Rider, just talking to
or
the
Thomas
people.
the Tank Engine. They have the faces.
I can't do that, Michael. Hey, time out. Can we talk about how weird it is that there was a hero on TV in the 1980s, and that like the title of the show was Knight Rider? That's what they used to call like Ku Klux Klan riders who at night would come and like burn a cross in your yard. Like, how come the racism sometimes isn't like very deep down?
Like, yeah, just like the General Washington. Or the General Lee was the car those douchebag brothers drove.
Yeah, I mean, it's like sometimes we get so conspiratorial with it, but sometimes it's just right up at the surface.
Do you know what else? This is really off topic, but I was reminded of. I totally forgot about is that in I think South Carolina, there's a big cliff that there's like an etched in artwork of KKK members like starting the KKK. Like
the
South Carolina's Mount Rushmore
is like KKK
like etched in. Yeah,
Let's
people on
burn
horses
that
starting
down.
the KKK. Let's burn down a cliff.
Let's burn down a cliff.
Burn that cliff to the ground. This is the favorite horror film of which pop filter Hall of Fame reject, who was rejected because one panelist hasn't gotten a clue about this legend.
Ryan?
Mike?
My first thought was Tim Curry?
Tim Curry. Very good.
Ryan.
2 enthusiastic votes.
Clue.
For
That
Tim
was
Curry.
Jeopardy style, where there's always a hidden clue.
Yeah.
In every
I was like,
question.
Tim Meadows?
Hasn't got a clue about this legend. This is Pino D'Angio's first film score. Why did he almost turn down the role? Ryan.
Busy.
Mike.
Mike.
Didn't actually know how to compose music.
That's pretty close. He was like, I am a musician, but I've never done this before, so why do you want me to do it for the first time ever? How did he do?
Okay, so this is the season of Serpico.
It is the season of Serpico, where we've heard some of the worst music of all time.
And just like out of place, and so the dynamics are everywhere.
This is the year where Martin Scorsese was like, I got it. I'll put music that people actually like in my movies. And everyone was like, whoa, holy cow.
Wait, you can do that?
This is the year that invented the pop soundtrack, which you would think didn't need to be invented.
Yeah.
But Scorsese did it. I would say that overall, there are some places that it is like eyebrow raising, but overall like adds to the effect. And like this film is so Hitchcockian that like I think he wanted his own Bernard Herrmann without necessarily copying Bernard Herrmann.
So maybe go out and like kind of make one.
Kinda, yeah.
What do you think about the music in this movie, Mike?
No, I agree. Sometimes it's very unsettling, and I definitely hear the Hitchcockian musical notes because it's not a ripoff of but there is like some weird high-pitched shit going on in certain scenes. It's unsettling, and sometimes you're like, is it unsettling because it doesn't work at all in this scene, or it's supposed to? And you're like, when you make a movie like this, baby, it all doesn't work. It works.
It's also really hard, too, not to make up excuses for the movie, but it's really hard because it's just not modern. Right?
No.
Like, it just doesn't sound like the movies that we watch in theaters today.
It's also not consistent, but I think in a way in which is kind of cool, which is that like he kind of is doing.
What the fuck is in this movie?
He's doing like 4 different things. There's I would say not 4, but I'd say there are 3 distinct scores. There's an orchestral, piano, and then there's like this weird electronic music that lets you know things are really about to get fucky when that music starts coming on.
That feels so beholden to Argento and Goblin. Like now we're gonna get like weird.
And then the 5th one is having a little person in a red coat always being like, "Don't look now, everybody." Don't look now.
Well, that is the end of the trivia section. Everything we say from this point forward is going to be very important. This movie abounds with doubles, either things that take place in the past and the future. Characters that are mistaken for one another. What does this movie have to say about doubles and premonitions?
Well, I think it hits in a good way for the premonition part of not a lot of psychic dealing movies deal with this of like, you would be unsettled and off your rocker at all times. Life is not comfortable.
If you're getting glimpses of the future. Because
it's not like, and so many times they're like,
or if your daughter died.
People wavering like, I'm a glimpse from the future. You can tell because I'm in a sepia tone. And he just sees people who aren't there yet. They'll be there in 2 days.
It seems to kind of like dawn on him. It's almost like he imagines that he's imagining it or something like that. You see him want to dispense with it as soon as it happens.
Because I think it would mean so much less if grief wasn't what this movie is really about. when you are grieving, you're hearing the people you lost voices. You expect to see them because you kind of double
see them
take
everywhere. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that leaf falling must be your uncle. No, it's just a fucking leaf falling. And so I think the adding in that extrasensory thing, I think, is a really good way to capture how grief fucks with your mind.
Okay, how it's like its own form of kind of like time travel or something like that.
Yeah, and I do think that like we talked about before, like I do think that you are doomed, and I think that it completely changes your outlook. Like you go from I have my whole life ahead of me to my life is almost over in one moment, where that's supposed to sort of be a gradual thing, I think, for most people.
And you like kind of actively want it to end. Like you would just like
I think so.
check out if you could.
I think that if it wasn't for like if he didn't have a little bit of concern for his son and his wife, which he does have a little bit for, but like, he is holding that back because he knows they're gonna die, and I don't want to fucking go through this again, so I'd rather die before that. And it's not an active thought in his mind, but it's in the background of everything.
Not only are they going to die, I have zero control, and that's all I want now. And also, it comes down to a certain scene, and my wife kind of blames me, and maybe I kind of blame me, and also they don't deal with it, but he probably blames his son a little because he was right next to her.
He was right. Like, you were right there, champ. You were right there.
There's a lot of finger pointing. Why this is awesome and why like non-modern movies rule. They don't deal with it that much. There's just, I think, under the surface finger pointing of everybody who's alive in this family blaming everybody else.
There's a perfect part where of like really defining how you can't blame the son because he's just a child. Where Donald Sutherland is like he brings his daughter up and brings her to the shore and is like trying CPR, but like he knows that she's dead. So like this is all for him. It's not for her. Like she is gone. And his son is standing there watching his sister die, but still like, well, I got this candy, so I'm just gonna eat some of this candy.
No, he's holding glass. In his hand is glass, and he's like, he's like caressing because he breaks that glass. Because one of the doubling things that you see all the time is glass being broken, and he's holding glass, but he's like caressing it because he's so out of it because of how shocked he is by what's happening. And you can see he's like cutting himself and he's bleeding. But he doesn't realize what
he's licking the blood.
Yeah, he doesn't realize what he's doing is like slowly cutting himself. And so like you see so much about what's going on with that kid, which the movie doesn't give like, or it just isn't. It's not about. I'm sure that it doesn't not care about him, but it's absolutely 100% not about this little boy. But you can see him being in his own like sort of instanced reality, his own like one person reality, and him being like absolutely transfixed in it right there.
As much as this movie is about grief, and I think that like we could eliminate everything else that it might be about.
Yeah.
And grief would remain.
And it's weird because the characters are constantly trying to move away from their grief, and so it's like they don't express it a lot to each other that much. But you can it's like Christine. It's always with them. They're just generally not looking at it.
But like as explained earlier, this is the first movie that has the traumatic incident and then skips time forward, but instead of skipping time past the grief, starts to actually dig into it.
Yeah, it's like it skips
and then
past
that's the entire movie.
To me, it feels like it skips past the part of grief where you are literally lying down screaming.
We are a howling mess.
Yeah, and it goes past that to the part where you're like, I think I'm actually ready to move on a little bit, because that's where grief is waiting to just fucking jump you and just destroy you.
Bastard.
Yeah, because at least when you're screaming nonstop, like you are like in reality. But when you decide you're just going to move past it, that's when you go into like Fantasyland. That's when you go to Venice, Fantasyland, right? Like you just absolutely depart from reality into the pretend land.
But as much as it is about that, I do think that like we're seeing a ton of let's fuck with storytelling, let's fuck with movie making, and let's never have it be the same again. Like in a lot of ways, I think this movie is as important as Battleship Potemkin. Where Eisenstein said, Eisenstein basically came out to prove that people know just mentally, just like they were born with this knowledge that when I cut from one thing to another, those two things are attached in some way, right? And so that's why this Potemkin is like famous for creating the montage, because it might not just be I'm walking here, now I'm walking there, now I'm walking there, or I'm lifting weights, now I'm jump roping, now I'm hitting a punching bag.
I'm creating a logic just by the order in which I show you the scenes and the way in which I sort of like mirror the content in one shot.
So even if it's three seemingly disparate shots, by the fact that they're back to back to back, we're now creating something in the viewer's mind. And this movie takes that and fucks with it in such a way that it like takes all of the mirrored things, the idea of glass and water and reflection, and the way that he will put shots together that do almost in a corny way are the same. You know, like some of them stand out, and you're like, good one.
Like
Only
blood on
because
the
of
glass thing looks like a person in a red coat running kind of thing.
I feel like we only feel that way now, though, because we live in a world he helped to create.
Exactly.
That makes us a little tired of.
And also, I think at the same time, he's setting up your brain to be like, let's throw him a couple corny ones. And then to like
so
set
they
their
get it.
Right. And then we're going to do it to them
Ryan.
a billion times where they get it, but they don't. And that's what's going to fuck them up.
Because glass and water and reflections are all about slowly, slightly distorting reality and what you see, and you can't trust it because it's not actually what you really see, right? And so he's just weaving that in.
And and it's not just the characters in the movie. It's us. It's cameras. Cameras distort it. We're watching this movie in, a theater or on TV, and that's a screen, that's a glass, that's distortion. Like, it's all a little bit off. Always on, always off. Was that IFC's?
IFC.
Yeah, that was IFC's slogan.
Slightly off, always on, slightly off.
Something like that. But there is no way to tell the truth. There's simply no way to tell the truth. So what he's doing is saying, well,
you can't go right at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so by editing in this way,
Ryan.
I can't tell you the truth about what happened, but I can tell you what it's like to grieve. Or I can tell you what it's like to have a marriage feel like it's real, but it's not. Or pretend like it's working, but it's not. And that's all through not the dialogue. This guy doesn't fucking give a shit about dialogue. It's the editing.
He's right.
I think
and that's because dialogue is cheesy and big melodramatic monologues.
Yes.
Fuck that. It is the jarring sense of how he creates the isolation without dialogue and the collapsing time.
because people
all
don't
of that.
talk about what's on their mind. Like even when you are like if you are in a marriage that lasts for years and years, you eventually have to like have these little meetings where you talk about what's really
State of
going
the
on.
Union.
Yeah, you have to do State of the Unions because you spend so much of the time not actually saying what's going on, but instead like trying to be cheery for the other person, trying to be supportive, trying to deal with your shit and not try to pile onto them when they're dealing with their shit.
Or sometimes, and this is rarer than you think, but sometimes literally just read this book. I just want to read this book. But like,
Tell me what you're reading,
and
woman.
look away to let any looky-loos know we're not doing well.
I mean, like, I don't even know if I know anybody who this has happened to, like this tragedy. Like, I can't imagine it happening to me.
You know who it made me think of? Rob Delaney, whose son Henry died of brain cancer, and
all he did was like write a book, create a show. Like, I mean, he did not dance around it. He definitely went through it. But holy fuck, how painful must that have been?
I recently saw him do like a kind of an interview, a one-on-one interview with Patricia
Arquette.
No, I can't remember if it's Lockhart or Lockwood, but she wrote a book called Priest Daddy, and she wrote a book called No One's Talking About This, which was about her sister's child dying. And so the two of them were talking about like what it's like to have lost a child, whether it's yours or. And part of what they both talked about is like you lose people in your life who are just like, I can't be there for you because this is too gnarly. Because grief pushes people away from each other. It is very hard to be together in grief because it's like an open, raw nerve.
I mean, it's like standing like at the start line of a marathon. And like, I guarantee you that if I was at the starting line of a marathon, I would say 100% of the time, oh, never mind. And I get back in my car and I drive home.
Goodbye.
And like, so like if something were like this were to happen to one of you two, it's the same thing. And I would definitely want, I wouldn't, but I would want to drive home.
Yeah.
But promise me this show goes on.
Oh, yeah. And we never talk. No, we only talk about it.
Before we move on from the doubling thing, I want to say something that is kind of like, or I want to talk about something that's kind of like doubling, but kind of not, which is we get to see at least we get to see two phone calls where we see both sides of the phone call. And I have never seen a movie where the sides of the phone calls don't line up meaningfully at all.
And is it on purpose? Because the movie's about you can't communicate, right? Like,
I do think that's the point. Yeah, is that it's supposed to be like a bad connection, but also like when he talks to the headmaster, when John talks to the headmaster, they've called up to say that his son has gotten injured. It feels like the scene is like not synced up in time.
Right.
Even.
Until the headmaster's wife is like, I'm going to fucking do this.
Just give me the phone. Oh my God. Well, we've had a bit of an issue here. Just say his kid is hurt, but okay.
Did this movie invent podcasting with somebody on Skype?
What?
Ryan.
Yeah, and the other part about this movie too is, or this scene rather, is that once everything's clear, we see Laura be almost happier than when she fainted and like found Christine again. Like her baby is ill, her baby is injured, and she gets to go save him.
Yeah,
and like that's when she gets more delighted than anything else. Like this, She also seems a little stoked after he's dead, and she's on the boat. There's a very kind of like midsummer, like hard to read expression on her face, but like I looked this up on Reddit.
Mona Lisa smile.
She's a little freer. Oh, looked what up on Reddit?
This face.
What the face is supposed to mean, and what is it supposed to mean according to Reddit?
Well, Craig.
WTF?
Halfway through the movie, they fuck. Did you know about that?
I did hear about that.
And she's pregnant, so she doesn't care.
Oh, because she's got his kid.
She's going to, and this is part of like the whole JC part of JB is that everything's fine because she will give birth to the fatherless son.
Oh, I like mine better, which is that she's like kind of escaped the prison of them having this.
But she has not though, because as bad of a husband as I think Sutherland can be in this movie, the sisters aren't. Like the sisters are treating her like an object, and now she's stuck with
she's
them.
not going to hang out with them for the rest of her life.
I don't know that. What if
she's going to go hang out with her kid?
What if they travel on a funeral boat for the rest of their days?
When we come back, if there's one thing you want to do when you're in Venice, it's go shopping, and so that's just what we're gonna do.
Here we go again.
All right, sweetheart. All right. Danny will get you a golden goose as soon as we get home.
No, I want one of those.
I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket.
That is right. It is time for a shopping spree. We're going to run through this movie, trying to stay one step ahead of tragedy, and all the while getting ourselves things that we really like. Mike, let's start with you. As you run through Don't Look Now, what are you going to get, bud?
And these have to be from the movie, right? Like
These have to be from the movie, yeah.
It can't be like chain link fences around the pond at your house so your children don't drown.
Not a terrible idea based on what I've seen recently.
This is the reverse shopping spree because it's Don't Look Now, things that were not in the movie but should have been.
If I had kids and I moved to a house with a pool, I love pools. First thing I do, just pouring concrete in that bad boy. Get out of here, pool.
Now you're into skateboarding, kids.
Woo! Cowabunga. Mike, what do you got? First pick overall.
That fucking funeral, not barge. Barges are big. What are these called? The funeral
water
boat?
hearse.
The water hearse is so sick looking. That is, yes. I want it.
Sea hearse.
I mean, you never want to die, and God willing, none of us ever will. But man, if you gotta go, water hearse, dude, that's pretty good.
Water hearse plus Viking funeral. That's not from the movie. That's just what I want.
That's just what you want. Yeah, should have been in the movie.
Should have been,
but it's not.
Also, we know now that if you're not gonna die in New Orleans, the best funeral city, then Venice is number 2.
Definitely. Great place to die. Your chance of coming back as a ghost if you die in Venice has got to be 2-3 times your average place.
Or a pigeon, which is unfortunate.
Or a pigeon. Or coming back as a pigeon. Ryan, what have you got? Besides a great pigeon impression that really needs to be.
It was good. Not as good.
I typically take the things. I'm very materialistic.
You love things,
You
man.
guys usually take the...
I'm like persons. Mike loves places, but you are all about
group.
Things. Yeah.
You guys usually take the stuff that you can't hold in your hand, like the experiences and the superpowers.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to change my rules here, though, and I'm gonna have to go with orgasmic visions. This blind sister starts to see something in the future, and she fucking comes everywhere and grabs her titties.
What the fuck happened there?
She saw them fucking, right? That's what I assume.
They're supposed to be conjuring up Christine, and when it cuts to what they're doing, she's standing in the middle of the room. The blind sister who's supposed to be conjuring up the Christine, and she's just rubbing her tits and moaning.
I don't know if she raised the dead, but she raised something.
I really do think she saw the scene we all
So
saw.
you want, Ryan, you want horny visions?
Yeah, I want to be able to fucking.
You want to be 14 again?
Here's a kind of weird thing. Spiritualism, when it first got really big and involved, like, channeling spirits and everything, it did take on this really weird sexual dynamic.
I mean, you got to get it out somewhere, right? And the church is like, well, you can't do it sexually, so do it churchly.
So some of the women would be like, well, I have to be naked to do this so that you can see that I'm not like making anything up. And then remember how they call like ectoplasm mumbo jumbo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of the place where these female mediums would like have ectoplasm coming out of, not very appropriate, if you ask this panelist. Horny visions for
ectoplasms.
Horny visions for Ryan. A step back into middle school. I am gonna have to go with I would like a stained glass window. All the windows in my house have the same major drawback, I think. They're not pretty little pictures. They're not
stained.
Cool stained glass.
Now, is Jesus in here, or is it like of you doing things throughout?
I think it'll be like a secular stained glass window,
like a big
maybe like
D20.
an Xbox controller, or like a Mario or something.
That's awesome.
Imagine you come over to my house and there's like a stained glass Mario, or actually this would be a lot better. This would be more like canonical, a stained glass Peach, because she actually has those in her castle.
What about the band Stained is in one of the windows?
It's Aaron, what's his face? Just a stained glass lead singer of Stained.
We don't have to get into the whole thing, but I'm actually a much more of a Puddle of Mud guy.
That is true.
Yeah,
because you love the way she slaps your ass.
The two communities don't actually see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, so we don't have to get into it. It's not a big
stained
deal.
glass, Puddle of Mud. It's all back to
Yeah,
Reflections
kinda.
and Don't Look Now.
Yeah.
Did Don't Look Now invent both those bands?
I think so. So it's actually not a good movie.
Another thing they invented was that part where John goes, "Can you take me higher before I fall to my death in this church?" You guys, how much grip strength does he have? I gotta tell you, if I have to hold on to something for my life, like hasta la pasta, guys. See you later. I'm out.
Honestly, the only person who has more grip strength is me watching that sex scene.
Ryan.
On his cock.
Ryan.
I can't. You know what? I can't help it. You're winning me over tonight, bud.
Now,
your comments are actually getting you more points
we
than
should
Mike.
let the listeners know that me and Mike both went to talk at the same time, and Mike gave me that floor. So
Yeah.
I gave you
he's
that point.
responsible for that.
You guys decided to start speaking at the exact same second, and then both stopped at the exact same second.
I was just going to tell a story about how I was once in a snowboard lift that goes like under your knee instead of a sit, and it got twisted and then I said,
Don't
fuck
get it
this,
twisted.
and I let go and let myself roll down
You
the mountain. I was like, because I was like, nah, can't do
Did
it.
you say cowabunga?
Yeah, as I broke every clavicle.
I don't normally think of priests as having like top tier fashion choices, and I think that's on me because especially Italian priests, they're like kind of taking it up to a new level.
They're also Italian.
Yeah, it's the Italian thing
Yeah.
more than the priest thing.
Yeah, there's a part where they're like walking around a church, and one of these priests walks by, and he has like a Game of Thrones style Jon Snow cape.
Yeah.
And I got to get my hands on that cape. It's like full. It wraps all the way around his body. It's very fancy looking.
It's how he disappears. He wraps it around himself. Says, "Look over there," and then runs away.
I am now invisible. All right, Mike. Oh wait, see for round one. Let's see. We got water hearse, horny visions, staying. You know what, Ryan? You went outside your comfort level there.
Ryan.
Both to discuss publicly your own horniness, which I know you are loath to do.
Yeah, I don't like talking about how horny I am.
Yeah. In round two, Ryan, what do you got as your second pick?
Well, now Greg's house is like a little fancier than mine with the stained glass Marios and
Yeah,
stained
you're
glass.
you feel it like as soon as you come out of my garage and you see my stained glass sliding glass window.
I got to keep up with the Joneses here,
Mhm.
and so I want those fucking gargoyles.
Damn it.
Gargoyles.
Give me some goddamn gargoyles.
They-
Bring out the goyles.
These goyles look so specific. The goyle that is like he's almost smooching while he's like setting up. Really, I feels like the movie thinks it's foreshadowing who the actual murderer is later. Like, There's a
And
lot
I'm
of
sure that,
one-to-one
if we
there.
Oh, I see that. I can
If
see
we were
that.
religious buffs, we would probably get so much more out of this movie.
I just assumed it was Pazuzu.
Yeah.
Was that
It's
not
always
Pazuzu?
Pazuzu.
I just figured they're supposed to bring him right to the
Look,
church.
Pazuzu's in every movie. They just never actually say Pazuzu's name in any movie.
And they usually don't show him, but
There's
he's
a couple
there.
of times where we also flash faces of other characters real quick. Just saw Mike's titties.
If I hear somebody say Flash, I gotta do it.
Gotta do it. Just gotta.
Did you guys see that new DCEU movie? Blue Beetle. Sorry, Mike. But yeah,
Ryan.
I
do
think
not
the
want to see
gargoyles-
my Blue Beetle. I'm sorry. Go.
the gargoyles. Remember that? What was that waffle website? Remember that?
Oh, Blue Waffle?
Blue Waffle. Yeah.
Don't look it up.
I don't.
Don't type that into the internet.
Don't go to popfilter.co/Blue Waffle.
No, do not do that.
Yeah, I think that the gargoyles are really going to like bring up the cost of my home a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And honestly, I love the line of thinking that is like, there are evil spirits in the world. They are bad. They do tangible things to make our lives miserable. They are afraid of spooky statues. Because that is the whole purpose of gargoyles is
And-
evil spirits come around the church and then they're like, look at these fucking
This is
scary
scary. I can't go in
statues.
there.
Is that what they think we look like? I'm
I
out of here.
can't go there.
It's like that comedian's bit about how if we don't make all bathrooms like one gender or anybody can use, it's like the child molesters be like, boys only. I can't go in there and molest children. I'll stand out here and never do it.
Oh, I can't break rules.
I would
And
never.
I'm not going to give away what town you live in, Ryan, even though everybody knows Sunny Burbank, California. But you won't even be the first house in your
I know.
town with gargoyles.
There's so many goiled houses everywhere.
All right, Mike, what do you got for your last pick of the second round?
Well, especially now that we know it was a wig, these luxurious curly locks. I am so
Yeah.
jealous. Everybody looks great with them, and I want that for myself.
Honestly, this is like finding out that Tom Selleck wore a fake mustache in Magnum PI. Like this is
Right.
what the Suds is known for.
This
And I'm
is-
kind of pissed.
It's upsetting.
Well,
It
and
really is upsetting.
throughout this movie specifically, I was like, how did Kiefer get his hair? Because it is
Yeah.
nothing like Donald's.
Exactly.
And now we know.
The stolen valor.
How did either of his sons, Kiefer or Emilio Estevez, get their hair? We'll never know.
That I think round 2 has to go to Mike. Curly supremacy. It's a real thing.
Yeah. No, way to
Mike.
lay up that. take into a
Sometimes
point.
you gotta know
You
your
gotta know.
host.
Mike, your last pick is due now. What is your last pick of this shopping spree?
I don't want to be the Aquaman of shopping sprees. Where like
Yeah.
I can only
You
help
never
out.
want to be the Aquaman of any situation.
Like he can only help fight crime if there's water nearby. Like
Yeah.
I can't really use my water hearse.
That's
So
true.
I want the city I live in. Now it's all canals, baby. I want those canals.
You're drafting the canals.
Good news, buddy. Thanks to climate change, many of the cities we live in will soon have elegant canals.
But let's be honest. If Mike didn't draft that, he would be driving that funeral hearse into his streets of the city he lives in
Oh, yeah.
for about 10 seconds before he broke everything.
Everything.
All right, Ryan, what is your final pick?
There is, Greg and Mike, you can listen to this, a scene in this movie
Thank you.
where a man and woman fuck. And
What?
I want that fucking
Is
bed.
there? You want fucking?
I want that. I want that fucking bed.
Oh, the bed that they fucking.
Yeah, it's
So you
a
can
bed
smell
built for
them?
fucking.
They were on a bed? I had no idea. So focused was I on the coitus.
I want to be able to reach around my wife's body all the way.
I can't wait till we talk about this.
Yeah,
I can't wait till we
opposite
talk about
shoulder.
this.
What the
We
what?
can't. Obviously, we're contractually unable to mention anything about that weird move now, or the fact that it sent her face right to armpit town. But we'll get there.
We are
in
all going
just
to
a
try that
second.
move this weekend.
All right. So Ryan wants the fuck bed. 73 has taught me a lot about the world. It's taught me a lot about myself. Thin men from the 70s wearing really like well-tailored brown suits. Such a good look. And it's like brown on brown on brown.
Not tan. We're not here to cancel Greg.
No,
It's not tan.
no tan suits. But a week after Bruce Lee, to even be on the radar in a brown suit is so impressive,
Bold.
I have to say. And so I'm just going to say brown suit. I'm not even going to pick one specific one. I'm just writing
In the
brown
70s, they
suit
were all
here.
brown.
They were all brown. And I think I got to go Ryan with the fuck bed. So nice to
Ryan.
have a bed that you can just do some doing it on. Mike, you walk with a wonderful water horse, curly locks, and of course, everywhere you go in your hearse will now need to be a canal, and so we're bringing that to your hometown.
I'm going to add one thing for Mike, which is a little strings to keep the wig on.
To keep the wig
'Cause
on.
he's
Thank
gonna be
you.
flying down to the canals in that
Yeah,
sailboat.
That's true.
And honestly, his hair has a way of finding its way off his head, Ryan.
That's true.
Me? Are you calling me bald? Fuck
What?
you.
Ryan, you walk with horny visions, gargoyles, and a fuck bed.
Yeah.
You
These are
perv.
all going to come into play.
That is a combo.
I have stained glass windows, a beautiful cape, and a brown suit. So
You are a vampire. That's
there
what
we
you're
go.
saying.
Yes, I am. That's everything I need to be a vampire. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, and if there was a fourth round, we are all going home with the Don't Look Now board game. So we can all play that with our family.
We're all getting the home version. When we come back, let's talk about this sex scene. Aside from the reveal of the killer, a little person, Don't Look Now is mostly known for its long sex scene, which rumor has it included some real-ass intercourse. Unfortunately, I think we kind of dispersed that rumor tonight on this show for the first time ever. What's Rogue doing here, and does the scene hold up to its reputation? Why all the banging?
Point of order, real ass intercourse or real ass intercourse?
Real ass intercourse.
Yeah, it's all butt stuff.
But why? Is it necessary? This is another story where it was not, I believe, in the script, but it was
improvised.
It was thought of.
It
was like thought of right as they went to filming, and that's why they decided to make it like the first thing that they filmed.
Are you super stoked about that? That like, I mean, this is the most iconic part of your movie, and you thought of it right before, which is a bummer, but cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is Rogue was looking over the script, and he thought, like, we never see them close in any way. And so the scene, everybody talks about the fucking, but
there's more. But wait, there's more.
Because it's interspersed with the two of them putting their clothes back on afterwards and looking as genuinely happy as they do at any point in the movie. Again, they're shown putting their clothes on separately. So, like, we have the two of them together, but then we see them post-coitus in separate worlds again. But they look very happy and nice.
Even if they're 3 feet apart from each other while getting dressed, they're never in the same shot together.
Yeah, well put, yeah.
And then there's the infinite Donald Sutherland butt shot, and I think that's, even though it's just his butt, it is, oh, sex is done, all I can see is me. Like,
do you guys think that this is the first time since Christine died, and that's why it's so wild and important?
I think go, Mike.
I think so. Like, either that or, like, it's the only time they can let their guard down is because hopefully the only time parents don't think about their kids is while they're fucking. And so, like, the animal part of your brain turns back on. It shuts down the grief for these blissful, for them, 85 minutes.
Yeah, I
For
mean,
me,
I
solid
do think
3.
It is like a really healthy drug to use,
Yeah.
you know, to like just forget for a little bit. But there's something about the length, and I think why it became so famous is because there isn't a single part of, not the way that it's shot, but the way that these two are interacting that does not seem like movie sex. And we've made fun of parts of it throughout this entire show. So desperate to get to the segment, were we? But there are so many weird things that happen in it that, like, movie sex is basically always the same.
Because one thing we need to say about movie sex, and because it's very clear watching this sex scene, that you are allowed to show a lot of nudity, you're allowed to show a lot of the couple together, but like the absolute thing you cannot show is any thrusting. Any like flexing of like the hips or like the man butt,
the biceps, which is
scissoring.
Is completely not allowed. I mean, look, like, think about in what is the Korean movie about the lesbians?
The Handmaiden.
Yes, they scissor for days in that movie. There's like 3 minutes of them just going to Scissor Town, but because that's like kind of like a fake, not very actual, like realized like sexual act, it's but the even nowadays, you'll see a lot of stuff in a sex scene, but honestly, what you won't see is the guy actually moving his hips in a very sexual way. And Rogue was always quick to point out that never happened in this movie, and so he felt like that's how they got away with it being so long.
But I think that the fact that like they do wrap around each other, and the aforementioned Sutherland trying to like bite the shoulder and stuff, like that's movie sex for all movies is sort of scripted in this way, where you do this, you do this, you do this, and then
a lot of like position changes,
right? And then now we have the L sheet, right, where like you're covering your boobs, and the boy is covering just the L sheet.
I love how naked Donald Sutherland is for this whole scene.
But like
he's boyishly naked the entire time.
These weird things that they do outside of the movie sex script are not only make it seem more organic, more like the in the moment, more like they actually penetrated, but like there is this feeling of like when they do these weird things, it's like I need to be more inside you.
More, when she's like biting his foot.
Right. Like, I can't be with you as much as I want to be, so they just keep getting like the closer and closer, and it's not like how sex is filmed, which is like in this very like visually stimulating, but not romantically stimulating
or emotionally resonant way.
Where this is where especially that wraparound moment we've talked about the whole time is like I need to be fully consuming you and you consuming me to forget how separate we are.
But ultimately, we would say not very sexy, right?
Well, and the music does no help. This is what we talked about parts of the time where the music does not jive. And
well, this is not actually the score. This part, the guy who wrote the music wrote a different musical part for this, but Rogue didn't like it. He said it was like too
sexy,
epic, or like too much.
This sounds like do you guys remember the theme from Ice Castles?
Ice Castles?
Don't let this be the end. Like this sounds like a version of a pop song that you would hear in a grocery store, like a Muzak version.
Yes,
that like
Muzak for sure.
Whatever was supposed to hit that the composer wrote, they fucking booted that and they just put elevator music on.
I don't think this is the first time they have had sex since their daughter passed, and that I think it's because of what you said, Ryan, which is that it is something in their grief they can do with each other that like takes them out of themselves for a little bit. And to bring up Rob Delaney again, who lost his son, one of the time when his son Henry was having like the most like important surgery, but also one that was going to be like very difficult, obviously. He tells this story about how he and his wife had sex twice while waiting for the surgery to be over. And so like I think when you cling to each other and you don't know what to say to each other, you don't know how to be there for each other, I think physically is one way you can, as a couple, like, find some way to navigate. And there's a desperation in this scene. I think that desperation is like, how do we be with each other? Because we can't break this barrier, this like glass barrier that's between us. We cannot break it. Even in this moment, it's nice and it's pleasant and we're doing something for each other, but it still doesn't quite get there.
I mean, the way that the scene is shot, the way that the feeling of it is, you are going to prison for life tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know how true that is, but that's like sort of how it's not animalistic. It's not like screaming and yelling, but there is, I don't know, it's like sensual plus in this weird,
the intensity, the desperation.
That just isn't in movies.
Yeah.
Right.
It's also one of the first depictions ever of what? Cunnilingus.
Good for them.
Yeah, one of the first times ever that was at least implied or kind of shown on the screen.
They call him Sutherland because he goes, what? You go.
That's why DJ Khaled hates this movie. That's what I said.
That's fine. We can leave it there. Point of order, and I think it's before it starts, and I know it shows like they're flirting and it's about to happen because he's naked. Don't call love handles lumps, because that makes it feel like tumorous.
And he's so thin.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you would just expect by his head that Sutherland is like a fatty fat. I don't know why. It's Elliot Gould, too. Elliot Gould takes his shirt off in
It's the curly hair. It's the curly hair.
Is it the curly hair? That's
yeah.
Just like,
it tricks the eye. Yeah. It makes you think the person's head is bigger, and then you think the rest of them's bigger.
But everybody talks about the sex scene. And then if they move on to a next point, it's like how it's intercut with them getting dressed again to go out, which is, this revolutionary idea. But no, I agree with Mike. It's the scene before as well where these fucking gorillas, these naked ass people, like, seem so comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And they're like, this scene has probably more time. The time that they spent together in this scene is probably more time than I've been naked around my wife in 7 years of marriage. And if she said, "Hey, look at your lumps," I would fucking turn into ash and a blip.
You wouldn't grab your nuts and say, "These lumps right here, baby."
Isn't there an interesting inversion there of the classic relationship though? Like normally we would expect in a movie that the woman is kind of mincing around naked, and Donald Sutherland is the one who's like completely naked for a long time before they actually get into the sex, and then it's like his body being evaluated, and you're not up to snuff. You don't look thin enough.
I don't understand how you could look at a dude naked and like want
be turned on.
with it. Yeah, have it be Donald.
We're
Sutherland.
weird, man. We are those gargoyles. I also think why this speed round,
Mike. You don't think anything.
I think nothing.
Did the music from this movie? Did parts of it at all remind you of the Zelda music?
Zelda has a lot to do with flutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the score, it's like the first 6 or 7 notes of the main score for this movie are the same or very similar to the Zelda music, and then it goes in a completely different direction.
I'm so sorry. When you say Zelda, do you mean The Legend of Zelda, or do you mean
The Legend of Zelda?
Zelda Rubinstein,
Tears
an actress from Poltergeist,
Tears of the Kingdom
that we've talked about. This movie is very similar to. The Legend of Zelda is what you're talking about, yeah.
I'm talking about The Legend of Zelda. So, we didn't get into this. Red, huh?
Red. Gotta do it sometimes.
Red. It's what? Oh, the bottom of the cup is red. Oh, I saw it there.
I know this movie is smart, and I know the people who made it are smart. But sometimes they're like, "It's red and it's water, right? You get it? It's red and it's water."
Is there any chance? This is so dumb, but I'm just gonna say it because I'm halfway through the sentence. Is there any chance that it's kind of a literal red herring that like it doesn't actually have that much significance in the movie, like you can't say like it represents this, like you could say it represents his blood at the end of the movie or something like that, but is there any chance that there's like it's supposed to be kind of an empty symbol that he is obsessed with and that we follow him along, but that's not where meaning is, that meaning is somewhere else in the movie, and that we are invited to sort of like put too much meaning into the color red?
I hear what you're saying, and I think that you're right, but
Ryan.
I thought you were right too, Greg.
No, you didn't.
Ryan.
That's cheesy.
I also think that there's something else that we sort of referenced before of like we right away notice the red. There's not noticing the red. If this is the first movie you've ever seen, if you've never taken a film class, if you've never discussed a movie before, you notice the red. The raincoat compared to the spilling the glass on the picture and the red spills, you can't not notice it.
Yes.
And so even if you can't find the meaning in the red,
Right.
or if Rogue has no meaning in the red, it's like, hey, dipshit, pay fucking attention.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like a starting gun for the movie.
There's something going on here. There's something beneath the surface of what you're seeing. I almost felt like there were times where he had to almost like unnaturally work it into the movie. Like there's a part where they're hauling up this poor murder victim's body from the canals, and the scene starts on 2 little kids' red like beanies.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, you see, there it is.
That's red. She's drowned. His daughter was wearing red and drowned.
Look, is there a chance that Rogue's assistant on this movie was like, sir, you haven't put red in a scene in like 5 days. Oh, shit. Let me get some beanies real quick. There's a chance. There might be a chance.
Can we see some of the mastery that would go into Rogue's other very important movie, Gleaming the Cube, a.k.a. A Brother's Justice?
That's the editor's movie. The editor directed that movie.
Oh, I see. I can't remember Gleaming the Cube. Does it have the same sort of like ragged editing techniques? The same sort of like...
No. It's Christian Slater
Time
being
jumps.
like, well, I guess
Gotta
I need
gleam
to get a
this cube
skateboard.
then. Gotta avenge my brother using only skating.
Is that an ungleamed cube? Not for long.
I just watched True Romance for the first time a week ago, and nobody's impression of him is ever wrong.
That's what I like to hear, especially since I thought you were cocking back a big insulting punch to the.
No, I love him, but everybody's impression is right.
So for my SNL tryout or audition, it'll be good.
Yeah.
Is it shocking to think that if you went to a bar in 1973 and you showed up with Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, that there's no chance you'd get any attention at all?
Well, that's why I have that wig now. So I would also get attention.
Maybe Mike did win the draft. Is there like
is that your water hearse outside? Yeah, it is, baby. I'm the one who made the city canals.
I don't want to talk shit, but like, if it was me, Elliot Gould from 1973, and Donald Sutherland from 1973, and we all went to pick up on my current wife, would I lose?
Yes.
They're just so I just would? That's so crazy to me.
I mean, Gould wins.
Yeah.
That's a sex pot. We've all seen the picture with Grover.
Yeah, that fucking sexy ass.
Does she have the 1973 sensibilities, or is she like the modern day version of your wife? Because I feel like when you're not bound by the 73 way of looking at the male body.
What the fuck were they into though? Like, have we had a movie where there's like a classically, like by 2023 standards, hunky guy?
No, I think we had moved off of attractive people at this time. I think the attractive people were definitely not having a moment.
Paul Newman and Robert
They were
Redford
both in
the
the
Stinger.
Yeah. The answer is the Sting.
That's why it's a basic-ass movie.
Also, Julie Christie in this movie is like one of the most beautiful women of all time. Like it's almost distracting.
You know, this is our third Julie Christie movie.
Is that
true?
Our third? What were the other two?
Well, at one point we'll do McCabe and Mrs. Biller. But,
yes,
I
I'm so excited to see that.
But Nashville, a different Altman.
Oh yeah.
And Shampoo, she was,
of course,
the politician's wife. The business guy's wife.
Yeah. Because her boyfriend made that movie, so she's like, "Hey, put me in it."
Wonderful actress.
Yeah, she's so great in this. Well, that is the end of Speed Round. When we come back, we're going to hand out some awards, and we're going to give you some recommendations. I want to do some awards and recommendations, but before we get into the awards, I have a way I usually do these awards. I'm going to mix it up. What made you cringe, Ryan?
Okay, so we have not talked about the second most famous part of this movie, barely at all, which is Donald Sutherland. And I don't think a perfect movie has to be perfect.
No.
I think a perfect
This
movie.
is a great example of a non-perfect perfect movie, I think.
I think that this is a 4-star movie with giant flaws. And one of them is like, fuck, we're still genre, right? Like, we're still in this like horror, suspense, thriller genre. One of those flaws, to me, this is just my opinion, Sutherland finally chases down the actual Christine jacket wearing person.
Not treating her like Christine in the least. This is what's interesting. He can't stop following this person, but even up until the very last second, he's not saying, "Christine, return to me." He's like not admitting that he
not like
thinks,
the Phantom of the Opera would sing.
Yeah, but like he's not admitting to himself that he thinks that this is his daughter.
Right.
This is just somebody else who needs my help.
But he is following her like down a dark alley.
Asshole dude. He just wants to get to the bottom of the logic. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. I just want the info.
I have to see because there is no faith in me. So I only know what I actually see, and so I have to see your face. I have to see that you're not my daughter. And
this is I don't know what it was like for you, Mike, this week, but on the 6th time or whatever watching it, it's so fucking forced, and it's so make fun of this poor actress, and it's so. And then after that, we get into 80s slasher where she gently slaps the side of the knife.
She just like places the knife in his neck, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's
so
it. That's a killing blow."
And then Donald Sutherland's like, "Okay, I'm gonna fall.
Give me the jar of strawberry jam, please."
I can't totally tell what the movie's trying to do at that point. Is it supposed to be like you thought she was young but she's old, or this is a little person, or like what is the? Is she supposed to be scary because she turns around and she looks like someone's nana or
the way
something?
that I always,
Nanas.
The way that I always think about it is that I remember vividly one day when I was a kid. I thought that in my cup when I ran up to sit down for dinner, there was milk, and I took a drink, and it was apple juice, and I almost fucking threw it. I love apple juice.
Yeah, you'd drink it all day if you could.
But
if adults were allowed to have juice,
I thought when you're adult,
illegal.
Like you find out that it's fucking terrible.
Wait, this is like drinking a milkshake? Yeah, but it tastes like an apple
it's not
instead.
as good.
Yeah,
but I almost threw up because it's not what I expected. So you're supposed to think that Christine is there, and instead it's the same heighted person, which is like Ari Aster level, like let's make fun of old people.
Yeah, I thought of
This
that
is what I
for
thought of,
sure.
yeah.
I was like in
Yeah.
Greg's brain.
Ryan.
Because
he's
that,
gonna have
like,
some stuff to say.
Anytime you're showing me an old person or a slightly non-conventionally built person, and you're trying to shock me with that, I get angry and I turn against your movie.
And then
They're
this
not
also-
saying all little people are murderers, just all Italian little people are murderers.
which that I believe.
Mike.
And then this actress can't stop twitching her head
Right.
like
Yeah.
to the left a little bit. And then all of this to me, from the casting to the idea to the forced genre nature of it, is what is the cringiest moment to me.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Mike, what do you got?
Mine is related. It's when we first meet the sisters, and the camera just keeps kind of zooming in on the blind sister, on both of them, but like it's just like, she's blind, isn't that scary?
Look at her eyes. They've got a milky film on them.
And I'm like, come on, man, don't
Yeah.
do this.
You know what?
Ryan.
I'm going to give it to both of you because there is not a ton of cringe in this movie, but the way it handles like people's size or the way it handles disability, it's not very comfortable and it's not necessary. Imagine if he just followed his vision,
Right.
and he walked off of something and he fell, which the movie predicts a lot. Like
he's a fallen motherfucker.
yeah, there's constant falling in the movie, and his vision like led him to accidentally kill himself or something.
Not only would it be not cringy by 2023 standards, it would be not fucking stupid.
Yeah,
The way having this serial murderer.
I love
Attack
when Mike
him.
goes full Philly on movie talk.
and it's like, okay, so there's been this killer that has like been talked about briefly in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So your killer is this little old lady?
But so she's the lady who also killed that woman and pushed her in the canal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like,
You
so
don't-
what's her MO?
You don't think this is the little old lady from Pasadena, do you?
I don't.
Mike, what do you think was the director's signature moment?
We talked about it a lot, even when we weren't supposed to, and then we did a whole segment just about it. That sex scene, not only was it all the reasons we talked about, but it's also, hey, viewers, if you don't get what I'm doing with time and collapsing it yet, I'm going to shove it down your throat here. And by now,
Phrasing.
keep your eye out for it, because I've been doing it since the beginning.
But like, so the time collapsing thing is the signature, though, right?
Yeah, it's not sex. It's the
'Cause
collapsing
the witches
of time.
didn't have Angelica Houston having a bunch of sex everywhere.
It doesn't. Okay, so I'm taking that
My
off
cut.
my
Yeah.
to-watch list.
Her nose is just melting while railing.
Ryan, where did you see director Rogue's signature in this movie?
I think it has to be this, but the one that I picked was the editing of the opening. I can't just say editing, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
But that is kind of the answer, so we're finding like a specific thing to attach to.
the award is called Director Signature Moment, and so what I'm going to say is Christine's drowning and how we get shots of the past, present, and future all at once. There's one at the end that I thought
And we're
about.
like assailed by them. We have no idea what's going on.
Right, and like again, I'm going to set you up to watch this movie. Like he's actually
Right.
doing us a favor in a way that a lot of already directors will not. They'll like, no, I want to leave you out alone. You know,
He teaches us how to view his movie. And
Right.
it's like done in a very unobtrusive way. The whole beginning of the movie is like a tutorial.
when a movie tells you who they are, believe
Believe.
them. But
Right.
there's another montage at the end of the movie that's a little more traditional, where it's like going through the movie.
His life literally flashing before his eyes. Bullshit.
Yeah.
So that it fits.
And then also just cutting to characters at the time like yelling because they kind of know what's going on.
right, but then like the Fonz jumps a shark, and then the Ninja Turtles
Hey.
high five. Like it was weird. It works in the movie. It's just a little more traditional. I think that the way that the opening of the movie is cut is so perfect, and we could have done a whole show on that. But also setting you up.
Yeah. I think I am going to go with
Ryan.
there, but that was a couple great answers. How about pound for pound performance, Ryan?
I mean,
The killer was hardly in it, so you want to just go with the killer?
And not a lot of poundage.
You can't say that about every character in this movie, right? Some of them have a high level of
lumps.
poundage.
Yeah, God, Sutherland, like, what was he at? 182 when he should be at 180. Like fat fucking.
Look at his
pig.
fucking
What a
size.
piece of shit. I drafted her powers, and I'm gonna take her now. It is Hillary Mason as the blind sister, committing to the bit
Yes.
in such a way where like she is I hesitate to use this term, but like she's in a what do you call it, heightened art or horror film, or elevated horror, and
she's bringing so much of the creepiness herself,
right,
to the movie,
and she's being brought at points where like she's in a B movie horror,
right.
But the way that she makes it work, the way that she freaks out, the way that she smiles, the happier she is, the worse off I am.
Yes,
like, that's just.
There's times where she's so jazzed and it's not clear why, and it's just like, why are you so happy, lady? What's going on?
But then also it's also pitiful, like her sitting in the jail cell, like say like, oh, somebody had me arrested.
He's like,
Donald Trump goes in there,
when I find the guy
who did that and gets her home, like she's. I think broad range here.
Excellent. What do you say, Mike?
Mine's Julie Christie. I think the way she captures the fighting to find any way to be happy again and grasping onto these two people she never met and just kind of unhingedness into fully buying into like the mystical. I think she's great.
Mike.
Yeah, I love it. And transcendent, so that always puts the thumb on the scale.
And braless. I think that
you said braless?
No, I think Mike said that. I think that part of why I don't think Sutherland is such an evil piece of shit or like a bad husband is because of what a good job she does dancing on that line of like grieving mom, but also smiling idiot. Like she is kind of gone. Like she is. I would be worried about her.
Oh yeah,
he looks kind of grasping. Like I guess I have to order for you
because she just like she falls down one day and then is gone.
Thinking of B movie level acting and Sutherland in the intro scene, him because he was the star of Sliver, right? That we watched a couple seasons ago. The evil worm zombie movie.
Slither?
The Cronenberg movie?
Huh? The Cronenberg movie, yeah.
Was it Slither?
No, that's James
Sliver.
Gunn much later. But Sliver, I don't think
you
watched it.
No, I didn't.
But I think it reminded me like his acting when he grabbed his kid, and then like I literally can't imagine what that. But it was so like B movie, like it was like, oh buddy, I hope this calms down, and it does.
Shivers
me timbers. So who was yours, Mike? Oh, it was Julie Christie.
Yeah.
Mike.
How about scariest moment, Mike? When were you scared? This is a horror movie, so when were you scared?
It is a horror movie.
So when were you scared, Mike?
That's what we're asking.
Because I don't want to. I have an answer that works for this and the other movie-specific award, but I want to change it up. So I'm going to say what they do so well in the intro, the way these two little blonde Muppets are playing so carefreely, but the music and the tension is building. You fucking know one of them's going to die. And so I think right away in the first scene, you're like, well, this is not going to be happy very soon. And it just keeps ratcheting that up.
And just so we're clear, if you haven't seen it, the music is 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton.
And I can't think of anything scarier.
It's fucking horrifying.
Ryan, what do you got?
My scariest moment is actually before the famous reveal. And that's Donald Sutherland is chasing this red-coated serial killer down through the back alleys of Venice, not the fancy
streets. Nice parts.
No. But really, it's all so moody, and it's not just Hitchcock, but it's like I don't know, like 1920s German expressionist film. Like this is like we're looking at some Caligula shit.
Ryan.
And then what we never see is this guy we barely see this guy whose boat he stole or almost stole, screaming at him from behind. So like we are being, we're chasing while being chased, and all of the sounds are everywhere. It fucking sucks, man. And
meanwhile, he's chasing the killer, which is just so funny that like she's taking him to this very secluded spot, and he's just absolutely pursuing her.
Right, exactly.
Well, some random dude's like, "Don't do that." I bet again, if we could speak Italian, they'd be like, "That's the killer. That's definitely the killer."
She's so distinctive looking.
Not your daughter.
This is all cut with Julie Christie getting home to the sister's house and being like, "Hello, everyone. I'm so happy. Where's my husband?" And the sisters are like, "Get him back. Go find him. We know he's gonna die." And she's like, what? Okay. That's not the scare. It's just the running through the alleyways is done so fucking well.
Ryan.
Yeah, and it's like, at some point, it almost feels like he leaves Venice. Like the place they get to doesn't really seem like he goes through some mist, and it feels like there's like an otherness there. Ryan, you are the show's resident expert on Italianness. What did you think was the most Italian moment in the movie?
I don't think there's any other answer except for what I'm about to say, Greg. Donald Sutherland gets on that fucking raised thing trying to repair the gargoyle or the fake church or whatever he's doing. He falls, and once it all starts to go down, somebody one level below him literally says, "Mamma mia."
Mamma mia! He fell on the platform. That's a pretty good
they're
one,
throwing
Mike.
barrels up at him.
Yeah, and they put a green pipe below him just so he could drop into it.
Mike, what do you got?
I think it might be the first time we actually see the red coat, but it is they're like wandering around Venice, and then suddenly it is midnight. There's nobody around. It feels like they're 18 stories below ground. It's like an old dead part of the city, and they don't know how they got there. Friends, I've been to Italy a few times. This just will happen to you. There's no way to not have that happen. Suddenly, you're in catacombs miles below the city, and you don't know what happened. And it seems terrifying, but it's all part of the process.
I'm going to give this one to Italian correspondent Ryan. But what I was really hoping was there's a time, that same scene, I think, Mike, they like yell out. And Italian people just open their windows and start yelling out the windows like, "Hey, you gotta quiet down there! Hey, you yell too loud!"
It's the original version of the internet. Well, you yelled too loud to make it like that. Yell
Don't
too
feed the trolls.
I have an HM. It is when he's looking for his wife after she's gone with the two sisters for the seance. And he's like peeping, and then there's a guy just who pops up like a neighbor in his face, and he's just like English, and the guy's in his face saying something aggressively, and he's just like English. That also is very going to happen to you in Italy.
All right, and lastly, we of course would never forget to do recommendations. I'm going to go first. So much of this movie is centered on the sort of energy of 1970s spiritualism. Spiritualism had different periods in time where it was very big in America and in the world, and one of those times was the 70s where it made like a roaring comeback, and suddenly people wanted to pierce the veil again and talk to lost family members and everything. Spiritualism is a very interesting belief system, and there was a podcast called Ghost Church by my favorite podcast in the world, Jamie Loftus. And it's
this is the Mensa person.
Yes,
like
my year in Mensa,
the hot dog girl, right?
And the raw dog is the book she wrote, and Lolita podcast, the Ack cast, the podcast about Kathy, which I didn't think I was gonna like because I didn't really care about Kathy, but it's like such an exploration of what Kathy is and why I would have the instinct to say I don't really like Kathy that much, like how culture gave me that message and how I repeat it, not because of anything I feel about Kathy, but because of what I feel maybe about women and how bought into misogyny I am. But
that's when people are like, "Tell me about Greg," I'm like, he's so bought into misogyny.
He's so bought into the patriarchy. He acts like he's not, but that's just on the surface. But Ghost Church is an examination of spiritualism without being judgy about it at all, but also not like being like, no, they're cool and they're regular. It's kind of like about how all religions are at their core very weird and how that's just like a part of religion and spiritual beliefs. And Jamie Loftus is just such a master. She's such a good podcaster, and the way she walks you through the stories and the way that you feel like you understand her. And spiritualism is a very interesting belief system. So Ghost Church by Jamie Loftus. Check it out. Mike, what do you recommendation?
I have two. One that I had prepared and one that I thought of on this show.
Okay.
Listeners might go back and realize the moment I'll do that at the end just in case it's Ryan's.
Is it Ghost Church?
It's not. It's Ghost Church. The first one is Suspiria. I think you'd probably say a lot of Argento, but it's the 70s horror thing of like, it does not feel like modern horror for big swaths of the movie. You'll be like, is this horror? And it's just like all vibes, and the music, like I said, definitely has it. And then the end really reminded me of it because Suspiria, there's moments where like, yeah, fuck, this is scary. These vibes are nuts. And then there's moments where like, what's that monster hand? What the fuck just happened? That was stupid as shit. So if you want similar vibes, it is a good watch. You should check it out.
Love it.
I don't know, man. Like, I get what you're saying, and also we're prepping for the end of the year, and we have a horror show for the end of the 2023 end of the year, and
yeah,
like, I'm sort of right now like, I don't fucking like this. This makes me fucking sick, and I don't like watching this, and that's what I have a don't Look Now, and that's what I have. I can see that with Suspiria as well. Like, this is horror, man. This is horror. Like,
this is horrible.
Yeah,
yeah.
This is Dr. Horror Bowls.
Sing along blog.
Sing along blog.
Is that your recommendation?
No.
What was your recommendation?
Oh, my recommendation is a little Netflix movie called The Killer, which
Hey-o!
some will say handles capitalism in, to some effect, masculinity to some effect. I think that we should do a pod about it at some point.
Yes.
Do we think that it's going to be in the booties?
Now I do.
I thought so. I thought it would be.
It's Fincher.
I mean,
I feel like we're gonna force it.
I don't know.
We
like,
might force it.
Yeah, it's worth talking about. It definitely I thought it was really good. It is certainly worth having a little bit of a conversation about. I mean, it's a very modern movie. It's very much about where we are right now. So,
but my connection, and Mike, this is a spoiler. All listeners, this is a spoiler. So
Earmuffs.
take your headphones off or press them closer.
He
to
doesn't
your
know
mouth.
how that works. That's okay.
My connection to Don't Look Now is at the end of both movies, they go up to somebody in children's clothes. And Don't Look Now, it's the red jacket. In The Killer, this person is wearing a hoodie with a Sub Pop shirt, dressed like a 15-year-old, and then you turn them around, and they are an 80-year-old person.
They are old. That's very good.
And
and they're basically like an old baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just an old baby you want to cradle, but also kill for the betterment of society. So Don't Look Now with The Killer. Not as good, though, Greg, if I may steal. A double feature as Don't Look Now. No, we were talking about something else. Don't Look Now and The Killer is my double feature of the weekend.
The one I thought of in the middle of this, and having been to Bruges vibe, it's in Bruges.
I do remember that from the show.
Yeah.
yeah. I would, oh shit, because chasing after you think it's a little kid that makes you sad because of things you might have done or not done, and no, it's a little person.
Although
it's a little person.
Bruges is shot like Venice in this movie, but I don't know if there is the nice part of Bruges that he's leaving out.
No. Well, I loved visiting there, but no.
Mike.
That is the end of our awards and recommendations. When we come back, we talk about how we think this movie is going to do in the bracket, and I let you know who won this show, although I kind of think it was Ryan.
Damn it.
Well, don't look now, Ryan.
What?
But you have done it again. 51-40. You have emerged.
Whoa. Damn.
Triumphant.
Ryan grabbed around to reach my back and make me smell his armpit while he was inside of me.
Into his armpit.
That's Rector's Eddie, but I will say that, not to give Mike any credit because he's a fucking loser, this movie, you can't. Sometimes, your experience with the movie doesn't matter on this show.
Right.
You maybe watch it once, and the other person watches it 10 times, and the person who watches it once will win because of fresher outlook or because they complimented Greg's non-curly wig a bunch of times. This movie is one of those where it needs to be seen multiple times.
Yeah.
It is so
At least
clearly a
2.
novelistic movie where, you got to go back again after you got the plot down.
Basically, your second viewing of this movie is like a first viewing of most movies. Having said that, that is generally on this show, that's high praise. And I felt like the vibes were pretty good for this movie. How do we think it's going to do?
Honestly, I think it all depends on, does Mike have the time to watch this again? If Mike does, we're done. This is it. This is the movie.
Well, I will say, I told this Greg off air, the first 45 minutes, I was like, fuck this, boring, stupid, and then it just keeps going.
So you
You're
watched
like,
it with your wife?
Wait, no, I watched it alone. You always like to blame her because you're a misogynist. You're like Greg. You buy into it.
Oh, no, the patriarchy again.
And then, by the end of Twitch, I was like, no, wait, now I get what they were doing. And, and then it's a peeler. The more you peel into it like an orange, the more you like it.
I don't think it's like our go-to reference on this podcast is Come and See, where oh, God, please don't make me watch this again.
No.
Even though it has very upsetting elements.
Sure. And there's parts that are slow. I think that there's a 20 or 30 minutes of this that are kind of come on, movie.
Yeah.
Even though you're perfect 4 stars. Come on, movie.
Yeah.
When Julie Christie goes basically to rescue her son.
England.
But when you put it back on, now that you have been given the Don't Look Now for Dummies book, because you watched it once, it's the whole thing opens up for you.
Yeah, I think it's the one. I think that this is going to go on to win. There's no way, and Mike, you'll get to experience this, but even you and I will, Ryan, who have seen it multiple times. There's just no way that you're not going to wake up tomorrow and think about this movie.
Right.
Like it's just you're never going to stop thinking about this movie. And the next time you watch it, you're going to learn a little bit more about it, but still you're going to feel like there are depths to this thing that I have not plumbed yet, and I'm interested in it still, and I still want to think about it, and I still want to chew on it, and that's how you win movie of the year, really. Like if we
win, guys, make your movies like that.
Just make them like that. Make them the kind of movies that people can't stop thinking about.
I wish I had watched it before
time.
me and my daughter dressed as John and Christine for Halloween.
Yeah.
That was weird.
That would have been better. I think that would have been better. Well, we still have a few good episodes coming up, and you can check those out starting next week. But until then, do me a favor, would you? Keep watching them movies.